All right, so we just talked about weathering, and we talked about how rocks can be broken down by wind, water, acid, or chemicals, and different things like that. But you may still be wondering, okay, so they're broken down. I don't really see how that changes very much. I mean, it breaks stuff, but that's about it. Well, there's another part that ties in with weathering, and that's called erosion. Erosion is very common, and any type of landowner will have to worry about erosion in some shape or form. Um, whether you own a house and there's a tree root underneath your house that might be causing uneven land, um, and all kinds of different things like that. So let's talk about erosion a little bit. Erosion is when you take that weathered rock or that broken down material and you move it. And that movement could be through gravity, through great glaciers, through running water, through wind, or through waves. So in this example, we have running water, where maybe that was ice in the winter and it melted, and now it has a heavy flow of water, which is taking that broke down material and it's moving it with the water, and it's causing these cliffs. And you see that in a large size with a river, and here's a nice small size in a field. You also can see how this material was weathered, and eventually gravity took this sidewalk down, and you can see the erosion, it's just withering away. So, not in Hettinger per se, but you can see landslides like this in our neighboring state, South Dakota. If you go down to the hills, you can see where it says falling rock, be careful, and stuff like that. And that's where gravity takes place. Eventually, the rocks can't hold much longer and they do collapse. And that's not just from gravity, that could also be from running water, from ice, or from wind. But it's definitely caused from gravity most of the time. This is another good example of that. And different things like volcanoes and stuff can cause erosion also. But in places like North Dakota, we usually see it from other sources. This example right here is a mudslide. So that would be from that frozen ice or frozen water getting melting, or from a lake running over, or a river, and it caused a mudslide, which is carrying away all of that broken down material and it's moving it. And here's some more examples. Here's where a hill might be collapsing and causing issues on the road. Here's where it just falls. This one, it can slide down, or it can slide down even with larger amounts. In North Dakota, we really have to worry about erosion with wind. And obviously, we have learned our lesson from the 1930s. We now plant a lot of grass and a lot of trees and stuff like that to prevent our ground from eroding and causing dust storms. But it still can happen. We still have, in drought years, we still have some mass wind erosion. So that's definitely something that we have to worry about. And another thing we have to worry about in Hettinger is glaciers, where we really don't have glaciers now, but a long time ago we did. So basically, Hettinger was underneath a large glacier that moved across the Midwest, basically. And when a glacier moves, it flattens a valley. It keeps everything around it wide and large and tall, but where it's moving, it really widens it into a nice flat land. If you can see here, this was before and this was after. And before a glacier, we have a V-shaped valley, which are kind of between mountains. So if you can see right there, and that's formed by a river. It gradually cuts through it and makes it sharp. But if a glacier moves through, it really flattens it and it makes it a U-shaped valley. So you can see how wide that is. And that's basically how the plains were made. That's why we have such flat land and not very many trees. And that's erosion. So stay tuned for deposition, which is the last section of how our Earth is shaped in natural ways, not just through monstrous ways like volcanoes and earthquakes.